Hey, friends, welcome back to the Be the Bigger Person podcast. I'm Melissa, your faith filled friend and grieving daughter who waited until my 30s for love. And through all of this, and then some, has learned a lot about growing in the Lord and being the bigger person. From grief to singleness to marriage to friendships and all the faith in between, let's have the honest and vulnerable conversations that you've been looking for. And before we jump in, if something during this episode sticks out to you or makes you go, ooh, yes, take a screenshot of the episode and share it on social media with your people, and be sure to tag at Be the Bigger Person Pod. So let's jump right in. Today on the podcast, we are talking about how you can support friends who are grieving through grief. This is something that I just feel so passionate about, because I think we all feel that notion or that worry of like, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I just, what if I say something that's going to make them more upset? What if they're having a good day and like, I don't know, or like, I don't want to be a burden to them. All of it. I'm sure at some point or another, you have felt this. And if you have, this episode is for you. So briefly, if you're new around here, my mom, Linda, passed away from breast cancer in June 2021. And it rocked my world. Like, it rocked my world. My mom was my best friend, my mentor, my mom, obviously, like, she was just the best. And our whole family really, she was like the rock of our family. And I remember when she passed, and I guess I'm naturally somebody who is a little bit more self-reflective. Like, I want to know, okay, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? But I also am very much somebody who is kind of I overanalyze things a lot. And so I'm like, okay, this person's doing this thing, this person's not doing this thing. Like, what could be done better? Like, I want to learn from things and be able to make things better. I guess maybe I'm a natural fixer. I don't know. And I will admit, like, before my mom passed, I had a couple friends whose parents had passed away. And I was like the worst I had no clue what to do or say. I did not know. I also had friends who had other people in their families pass away, spouses, siblings. And I just, honestly, I did not know what to do, what to say. I remember when I was in college, I want to say, a friend's mom passed away, and they had like a memorial, like a visitation type thing at her house. And I remember sitting there with her and one of our other friends who I went with, and just being like they had these little like popcorny type ceilings. And I remember just being like, I didn't know what to say to her. And I just remember being like, wow, great ceiling. Like, Melissa, what are you doing? But I think the thing that we all worry about is you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to say something that's going to make them uncomfortable. You're like, I don't know if they want to talk about the person. I don't know if they don't. I don't know what to say. And so you just don't do or really say anything because it makes you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's what I've learned. And that's what I'm hoping in this episode to really encourage you in, is ways that you can show up for a friend, a coworker, a family member who is grieving in a way that you feel confident doing, where you don't feel uncomfortable if you're doing or saying the wrong thing, because you have the language, you have the tools to be able to support them in grief and have a peace about it, and feel like you have like tools in your toolbox. Why this matters so much. Grief can feel so isolating. When my mom first passed away, I got this like analogy. I want to say I got it from the Lord, because I'd never heard it anywhere before. And I don't know that on my own I would have had like the words to put to it. But I felt like there was this analogy that, like, when somebody first passes away, our trains are all parked together at the grief train station, and we're all there. Time almost stops. You're all there together at the grief station. You're all grieving together. And it's this beautiful, you feel so surrounded. And then as time goes on, everybody has the privilege of being able to have their trains depart from the grief station. Because while they might think about your person, or they might be affected, now and again, or maybe once a week or whatever, however their relationship is with your person, they might be affected by it. They're not being affected by it as on the daily as you are, as the person who's like being really hit by it. And their trains are able to depart from the grief station, and your train is still always going to be parked there. And that separation between their train being able to take off and your train still being there is that gap is what feels so wildly isolating. And even when people really mean well, like that notion that suddenly you're now in it on your own and everyone else has had the benefit and the privilege of being able to move forward, that's the part that feels really isolating, when there's less people checking in, when there's less people showing up, when there's less people calling, like they do in the first bit of time after your person passes. And so I think that's why it really matters to me, because grief is so isolating. It matters to me so much that those of us who are around friends, family members, coworkers, whoever, who are walking through deep grief, it matters so much that we have the tools in our tool belt to be able to support them. And it doesn't have to be major. It doesn't have to be so big. And that's why I'm hoping to be able to give you guys some ideas and some thoughts. The first thing that I would recommend is say the person's name, whether you knew them or not. Something that I realized in grief, and it's been confirmed in talking to other friends who have gone through grief, whether it be a parent, a sibling, a child, a spouse, you name it. Something that everybody has said, like across the board, is they want their person to be talked about. I remember talking to a friend who lost her son like literally weeks before he turned a year old. And she said it was so hard, and still is really hard, for friends to talk about, like to ask about her, because she has two other kids, to ask about her kids and like those two other kids and what they're doing and their milestones and whatever, and not recognize the fact that she wishes that her son who passed could be meeting those milestones. And I'm not saying that has to be something that in every single conversation they're like, oh, I recognize, fill in the blank. But I think that's where it's like, it doesn't have to be every single conversation, but having a couple conversations where the griever knows that the people that are around them are remembering their person who passed really matters. So for example, when I was planning my wedding, and there would be times where a friend would reach out to me as we were getting ready to do things and say like, hey, I just want you to know, like, it's not lost on me that I know your mom really would love to be here, and we would all love your mom to be here. And like, it would just be so much more beautiful if she was the one that could button up your dress, or if she was the one who, was planning your bridal shower or whatever. And then the next time I would talk to that friend about planning my wedding or whatever, they might not bring up my mom. And maybe the time after that, they wouldn't bring up my mom, but maybe 2 times later, they would again. And so again, it doesn't have to be every single time, but there needs to be some consistency in talking about that person. And again, this could be even if you never met that person, like ask to hear stories about them. Like, hey, what was your favorite memory with so-and-so? Or what was something that so-and-so did to make you laugh? Or what was one of their greatest strengths? Tell me a story. Like, just tell me a story about them. Because those are the types of things that really, really matter to somebody who's grieving, is to know that they're not the only person who is thinking about the one that they've lost. And the way that gets accomplished is when other people bring them up. And so bring them up, say their name, talk about them. Before we go any further, let's talk about something special. In case you didn't know, my brother Josh has Down syndrome, and I'm always, literally always, looking for a way to share about him, about Down syndrome, and about our life as a Down syndrome family with others. Throughout my years as an elementary and special education teacher, I was kind of unfortunately surprised by how few books there were that both taught kids about Down syndrome in a way that was age appropriate and not just a science textbook, with also having an engaging story that featured someone with Down syndrome as the main character. So I decided to fill that gap and write a book of my own using my master's degree in special education and my 30 plus years as a Down syndrome sister. The ups and downs of a very special superhero shares with kids and really readers of all ages what Down syndrome is, what characteristics people with Down syndrome often possess, what life with someone who has Down syndrome looks like, and how they can be superheroes too through speaking up for what's right. This book will prompt your kids to ask questions and will give you the answers to guide the conversations, and will empower you and your kids to be leaders for change and for kindness in the disability space. Because the more you understand, the better you will be. And what better way to do that than through storytelling that represents more inclusive characters and families? To get a copy for your family, your classroom, or your friends, head to Special Ups and Downs. That's Special UPS and Downs.com, or use the link below in my episode notes. Now, back to our episode. The other thing that I think gets overlooked a lot is showing up past like the first week or two or the first month. Again, it's that grief train. About after between somewhere after the first week to the first month is when trains start to leave the station. Life moves forward. People have other things that are able to be front of mind for them. Whereas the person who's grieving, their grief is still so front of mind. And so I think it can even be as simple as just sending a text that's like, hey, how's it going? Thinking of you. And I get it. Like life moves really fast. It can all of a sudden your whole schedule is just like boom, 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 like a million things. And suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't checked in on this person in like months. And so that's where I would really recommend set a reminder to check in on them. Maybe you set one for every 4 weeks, or you set a reminder in your phone, or set a calendar like event that pops up with an alert for if you know the day they passed, or if you know, for on Mother's Day or Father's Day or on their birthday or whatever, or even just, I mean, honestly, just set a reminder for every couple of weeks, check in with so and so. And whether that means you call them or you text them or you send them something or you get together, like, because life moves so fast, it's not a bad idea to set yourself up for success by setting a reminder to check in on those people, and specifically checking in on like how they're doing in grief. And it doesn't always have to be so serious. It can be like, hey, I was just thinking of you, just want to know how you're doing, just checking in to say that I'm thinking of you. It can be so simple, right? And I think that some, like, I will always, there's a different kind of smile that gets on my face that's like just in a whole league of its own when a friend reaches out to me out of the blue to let me know that they're thinking about me or thinking about my mom, or to tell me a story, or to just check in or whatever, like just unprompted, that is. And if I have the capacity to reply or not, like, I have a friend who literally for the first 2 years texted me like once a month. And I don't know if she had a reminder on her phone or if she was just really good at it, but that meant the world to me, the world. So I think don't overlook the power of a simple text, just saying, hey, I'm thinking of you, thinking of your mom. It's so simple. It's so simple. The other thing is offer specific help. Okay. One of the least helpful things that people said to me, this wasn't just one person, this was like, and this is, I think, a natural thing that people say, but it's so unhelpful, is let me know if there's anything I can do to help. And here's why that is so not helpful. And in fact, it's like, I would always say to people, I didn't say this when they would say that, but I would, in talking about this phrase, this is what I would say. I'm actually not going to, because my brain doesn't have capacity. So, like, if you were to say to me when I, especially in like the first year or whatever of grief, the first kind of initial time period, if you were to say, let me know what I can do to help, then that puts the burden on me, who I already have a lowered capacity, because grief, I've said this before and it's like scientifically true. Grief has the same effect on our minds as a traumatic brain injury. Like, so many parts of our like frontal lobe, pre-cortex, all the things, I'm so not a medical mind, but like so many parts of our brain that affect memory, executive functioning, energy, like all of these pieces are so affected as if they would be if we got a traumatic brain injury. So I already, as a griever, have such a lowered ability to like think and process, and my capacity is so much less. And so you're asking me to, through that, figure out what I need and tell you. And which, not just the figuring out what I need part is hard because I don't have capacity, but then I have to be the one that like awkwardly reaches out, even though you as the support person may say, oh, that's not awkward at all. I want you to. It feels so awkward to ask for help, whether you're in grief or not. Like, it feels so uncomfortable to put yourself out there and say, I need help. And so not only do I not have mental capacity, but now I'm in a very awkward position where I have to be the one that reaches out. So no, I'm not going to let you know how I can help, how you can help. So what I would say to rephrase that, because I recognize, and I hope I don't come across, I probably do, as like bitter or sassy. I'm not, because I recognize that people who say that truly want the griever to know that they are there to support them and that they love them. And they maybe just don't know how else to say that. So here's what I would recommend: offer specific help. One of the best like text messages that I received early on in grief, I think it was like 3 weeks in, was one of our family friends was like, hey, I'm at the grocery store. Send me a couple things you need and I'll drop them off at your house. And I was like, whoa, that is super helpful. Cause then I can be like, oh, right, we need milk, we need bread. She's telling me to do this. She's putting the ball in her court. And she's like basically telling me what to do, which is great, because when you're in grief, you don't really want to have to think, you just want to blindly follow. And so that's so great. Or even like, I saw something on Instagram, you've probably seen it before. And then actually I had one of my best friends literally did something very similar. It's basically, hey, I'm thinking of you. I want to support you. Here's a list of 5 things that I would love to do for you. Pick one and tell me, and I will do it. And it's like, number 1, let's go get coffee and chat. Number 2, I'll call you and just be a listening ear. Number 3 is I'm going to make a grocery run for you. Tell me what you need from the grocery store. Number 4 is like, I'm going to take your kids. Obviously, I don't have kids, but this was the example on Instagram. I'll take your kids for 3 hours to the park so you can have some time by yourself. Number 5, none of the above. Just know that I'm praying for you and thinking of you. And I'm like, well, dang, that's brilliant. Like, so brilliant, right? Or even it could just be, doesn't even have to be that extensive. It could be like, hey, I'm going to drop off dinner on Friday. Does your family have any allergies? Or we actually had some very good friends of ours, like 2 days before we were going to have the funeral. And then we were going to have like the Shiva, which is basically like a visitation kind of memorial at our house the same evening. We had 2 friends of ours that literally texted my dad and said, hey, we want to come over. Can we like mow your lawn and weed your garden? And my dad was like, actually, that would be wildly helpful because we're about to have 100 people at our house and I've had no capacity to do so. So like just offer a very specific, like, hey, can I take your kids for a couple hours to the park? And a lot of it is probably, unless you know your friend really, really well, it's probably not going to be the like, can I come over? It's going to be the like, what can I do for you? Like, hey, can I come over and do a load of laundry? We don't even have to talk. Like, you can go upstairs in your room and take a nap. I'll just come over and do some laundry. Or, because I think sometimes people don't really want to have a whole lengthy conversation. They just need stuff done. And that, just the action of it, like, hey, I'm just going to do this for you, or let me know if that's helpful. Brilliant. So brilliant. The other thing is, I had a couple people, and again, I want to make a really strong statement, like a really strong preface. None of the things that I say people did that were unhelpful am I mad about, am I bitter about, because people are truly doing the best they can. So many people just don't know, and they do the things that they think are best. And that is where it in so many ways is the thought that counts, because I would rather people really try as opposed to not try at all. So hear me when I say I'm not mad. I'm not bitter. I want to teach so that we all can be better. So that said, I had a couple people who did not reach out, did not say anything, did not send a card, did not send an email, anything when my mom passed. And like 2 months later, wrote me and was like, hey, sorry that I didn't reach out. I didn't want to be a burden, or I know you have a lot going on. I didn't want to add something else to your plate. What I would say to that is, don't disappear. Give someone space, because especially in the early days of grief, there's just so much that has to be done and has to be processed, and like so many emotions. And again, grief brain is so real that, like, yes, if your person that you're reaching out to, your friend, whoever that is grieving, does not reply, don't take it personally. If you call them and they don't answer, don't take it personally. But don't take that as a sign that they don't want you to keep reaching out. Maybe change how you reach out, but don't stop reaching out. Don't disappear, because unfortunately, my dad said it and it's true. It's really hard to not keep score, right? And it's really hard to not think about the people that didn't show up, or the people who disappeared. Like, I would never, but if you were to ask me right now, like, can you list the people who just didn't show up, who didn't reach out, who reached out once and never really brought up anything ever again? I could probably tell you. If you ask me to tell you a list of the people who have been consistently reaching out, consistently talking about my mom, consistently checking in on me, I could also tell you that. And so while I'm not saying to reach out consistently so that you like make the list, it really matters. It really makes an impact if you consistently show up for your person. And even really I can think of a couple friends who I probably wasn't the greatest friend to for like the first 6 months, because I was going through the ringer and I just was like, they don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was going through my own thing and I probably wasn't the greatest friend to them. Stick with it. Like, stick with it. Okay. Because grief is traumatic, and your friend's going to come through it, but they need you there. And I also think the other thing is, speaking of consistency, is continue to reach out and invite them to things, continue to invite them to hang out, and literally it could just be like hey, no pressure at all. We'd love to have you come over on Friday. Totally understand if you can't. Or, hey, a couple of us are going to go get coffee. If you want to show up, we would love that. Totally understand if you can't. We'll get you next time. Because again, it's about like, grief can feel so isolating. And even though I know that the intention when people don't reach out to invite somebody who's grieving, the intention is like, well, they're grieving, they need space, gosh, how insensitive of me. We're all going to go have fun and they're grieving, or I don't want to add something else to their plate, or they're not going to be able to. I don't want to make them feel bad. What is received, like again, intent versus impact. The impact is that the person who's grieving just thinks everyone's moving on without me. They don't care to invite me anymore. Like, you know, they just don't want me around because I'm a Debbie Downer. And so keep reaching out, keep texting, but make it so clear that you completely understand if they can't come and you still love them and you still want them there. There's so much that is so easy to do in grief. And I think it all comes down to two things. One is consistency. Just be consistent. Remember that in this season, it's going to be very likely that you, as the friend, are going to be giving a lot more than you're receiving. Even if your friend seems like super bubbly, happy, whatever, they need to just receive. You need to give. And the other thing is grief, because it feels so isolating, keep showing up. Again, consistency. Like, keep being there for them, surround them, and let them know that they're surrounded. Like, literally tell them, like, hey, we're surrounding you with so much love. Like, one of the things I remember somebody posted when my mom passed was like, our entire community is mourning. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that I feel so surrounded and supported, knowing that I'm going through deep grief and so is everybody else with me. Like, I feel so supported. And again, like, everyone is going to grieve differently. And that's one thing I will encourage you in, is like, some people may grieve how you expect, which is like crying and sadness and kind of low energy. And one thing that I think probably they worry about or think about is, am I being a Debbie Downer? And so I think just really encouraging them that they're not, that this is normal and that you love them regardless, and that you still want them around and you're going to give them grace regardless. And then I think there are those who will want to or be able to smile and have fun and find joy and happiness. And in those, still recognizing it does not mean they have moved on. It either just means that they have an ability to find joy in it, or perhaps they're suppressing it. But also that you are not going to ruin the mood by bringing up the person that they've lost. So you can still do that, even if they feel happy and smiley, whether it's a month down the road, 3 years down the road. You're not going to ruin the mood by bringing their person up. And it's okay if you bring their person up and they start crying or they get a little teary or a little sad. You still have not ruined the mood, because, like I said earlier, it really, really, really matters to hear their person brought up. Like, that matters so much. You know, I think a lot about how in scripture it talks about grief. It talks about weeping. Romans 12 says, weep with those who weep. And that is like the epitome of what we're talking about here, is going arm in arm, hand in hand with your friends and your people who are mourning, who are grieving, and being there with them. So if they need to weep, weep with them, sit with them while they weep. If they need fill in the blank, you are there with them for that. Like, meet them where they're at. And as Roman said, weep with those who weep, mourn with those who mourn. Like, walk through that process together. And there's no timeline for it. Somebody once told me that after 2 years, they had moved on from their father's death. And I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't. I mean, maybe that is the case for them, but that's not a prescriptive like timeline. There is no prescriptive timeline to grief. And the thing that I think about a lot too is that Yeshua, Jesus, showed up for people in grief. Like, I think about when Lazarus died, and he knew that he was going to raise Lazarus up again. Like, he is the Son of God. He must have known, right? like the Lord was speaking to him so much. I'm sure the Lord gave him some sort of cue. And yet the first thing he did, he wasn't like, you guys, seriously? Like, I'm about to, like, you'll be fine. Or, find joy in all circumstances or, whatever. He grieved. He wept. Like, he didn't rush it. He wept. And that's where I love the fact that the scriptures show us this model for how to show up for our people who are grieving. Is we get to grieve with them and mourn with them and partner with them in that so that they don't feel so isolated. And that is, I mean, love your neighbor as yourself. Like, I think about that a lot, where if we are going to love our neighbor as ourselves, how would we want someone to love us ourselves? And then we love our neighbor that way. So whatever we would want to be done to us, we do that to others. Like, if we want people to surround us with love and care and support, do that to others. If you want someone to show up and meet your needs, do that for others. And so that's where all of this, showing up for our people who are in grief, who are grieving, it's the model that God has given us. It's the example that he set for us. Like, he knew grief. And so that is why it matters. It's not just something that like our culture tells us to do. It is godly. It's biblical to show up for our people who are in grief and to show up for them well and long term. Like, long suffering, that's what this is. Not short suffering, long suffering. And remember, like, you don't have to say the perfect thing. It's okay if you fumble. It's okay. It's okay if you say something that later you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And guess what? You be the bigger person and you reach out and you say, hey, I said X, Y, and Z earlier. I recognize now that probably wasn't the most helpful thing to say. Please forgive me. I love you. That's being the bigger person. Yes, that is vulnerable. That is honest. And that's the right thing to do. But just be present. And that's where I also say a lot, like, ask more questions than statements that you make. Like, ask more, speak less, because you will very quickly, get a sense for where your person is at, but you also will give them an opportunity to process the things that they're going through. And you'll also have less of an opportunity to say something that you regret. So just show up, be consistent, surround your people with love, choose them and choose to love them in the hardest of seasons. Like, in the hardest of seasons, let them know that you love them and choose them. Even when things are messy and even when things are hard, you're going to show up for them. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you some really good tools in your tool belt of loving your friends and supporting your friends in grief. Thank you so much for listening and being here. It truly, truly, truly means the world. I'm glad that we can walk through all of this together and have these conversations that we all really need and we're all really searching for. If this episode encouraged you, if you got some new tools in your tool belt because of it, or if you just enjoyed it, would you please share with a friend? And be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss what's next. We release a new episode every other Monday. And also come on over to my Instagram, Be the Bigger Person Pod, and say hey over there too, because I would love to connect with you there. So I'll see you around, and I cannot wait to chat on the next episode of Be the Bigger Person Pod.